What's up everyone, my name is Cam, I'm a certified dog nutritionist, founder of the Dog Nutritionist, and this is my nutrition guide and kind of homemade recipe for supporting dogs with urinary disorders. Now there are many different types of urinary issues. You have urinary tract infections, uroliths, which are urinary stones, struvite, cystine, calcium oxalate, and actually a few of those issues require different types of nutrition management. Despite all of those issues being different, there are a couple things which you need to do from a nutrition standpoint. Number one is working on the hydration that your dog is getting, the water content and their urine supersaturation. Often when we see dogs with urinary issues, they have high concentrated urine. To get rid of that, you need to introduce a fresh food diet, which is much higher in moisture than dry or wet tin food. And you can add water to your dog's meal, or you can use bone broth outside of meal times. I recommend around 50 milliliters per 10 kilograms of body weight of bone broth, fed somewhere outside of meal times to get more and more water. The second thing is working on the urine microbiome. Yes, the urine has its own group of non-dog organisms, bacteria, fungi, that work together to promote a healthy environment. The way in which you create balance within that urine microbiome is looking after your dogs. Bacteria, fungi get into the blood via the small intestines through the digestive process. That then goes through your dog's kidneys and into their urine. It is vitally important to look after your dog's teeth and make sure your dog's gut is nourished appropriately with fresh foods if you're going to provide maximum support. So today what we're going to do is just run you through the ingredients that I'd use to get your dog's urine microbiome in place, the tips that I've talked about for increasing hydration. Again, if you want more specific support for specific issues, read the article in the description. The recipes I make to support your dog's urinary health are far cheaper than any commercial pre-made food that is advertising itself as doing the same thing. It's also infinitely healthier to feed your dog fresh foods, lovely colorful ingredients that work out to be a fraction of the cost. Why wouldn't you do it? So I'm going to chop up chicken today. It's going to be the meat. Make meat around 60% of the meal. You need to be careful when choosing your meat that it is one that agrees with your dog. If there's levels of discomfort after meal times, if there's excessive itching, if they get ear infections, that suggests that there is a meat protein they are consuming which is no good for them. That affects the gut microbiome, which in turn will affect the urine microbiome. Whenever dogs have health issues or come to me, I actually tend to recommend fairly similar diets, but with few differences. Why are they all fairly similar? Because if there's an issue with your dog, you need to go back to the most natural methods of feeding for the body to restore itself. High amounts of protein, of moisture, good meat, that's what dogs are supposed to eat. We're also going to be including a little bit of liver, which will make up 10% of the meal. You can use heart or lungs, non-secreting organs, and those can make up double the amount that liver can, just because liver is more rich. I'm using beef liver today because I know Isla is good on both chicken and beef. If you're unsure about what proteins your dog is good on, just make sure that you choose the same liver as the meat source. Be sure what you're giving your dog works for them. You do not have to cook this food. I know many of you will prefer that way of doing it. It has a higher moisture content, which is good for urinary issues. And all you need to do is not cook it, store it in the freezer for 24 hours, and then transition your dog. So now we chopped up all the meat, we're gonna put it onto a baking tray and bake it all for around 10 to 15 minutes. Space it all out, and in it goes. Whilst that's cooking, what we're going to do is talk about the non-meats that you can feed your dog which can support their urinary tract. Now, like I said at the beginning, different urinary issues need different levels of management. Some need a more acidic diet. So you would use D-mannose in apples, which is a type of food compound, has been shown to really help with urinary tract infections. That's the one I'm going to use today. You could also use cranberries if that was the case of increase in acidity as a lower pH. Yogurt, a probiotic, is helpful to use, either natural Greek yogurt, goat's milk, kefir, sauerkraut as well. It's not a dairy product if your dog is not good on dairy. And you just really want to give them a teaspoon per 10 kilograms of weight, per 20 pounds of weight every other day. It should be the first thing that they eat. I'm going to use 2 small apples, grate them in. It should make up around 5% of your dog's diet. You just need to be sensible with the quantities and proportions of fruits, the veggies that you're putting in. Like, it's not an exact science. I understand the anxieties totally. Again, click the link in the description and you'll be able to find some more exact quantities. I'm probably going to do half zucchini. This is just an easily digestible vegetable for a dog to be consuming. Again, I'm going to grate it in raw. I do have some squash here. I'm not going to use that today. You can bolster your recipe with a little bit of squash, but actually for optimal balance within the gut, I'd recommend leaving out carbs for a little bit and focusing more on the meat quality, the apple, the cranberry, and the moisture. And then once the issue's restored, you can start reintroducing carbs. A large part of urinary tract health is calcium homeostasis. In this case, we are going to use an egg. Just crack it and boom, drop it into that non-meats. I am going to recommend you bake it a little bit, 10 minutes in the oven, then crush it in a pestle and mortar. You want 1 eggshell per kilogram or per 2 pounds of food. You need calcium, phosphorus, vitamin D for your dog to properly absorb calcium, along with manganese as well. It isn't the case that when your dog has, let's say, calcium oxalate stones, that you would need to just cut out calcium altogether. Actually, when you focus on the other causes of urinary tract issues, which are the gut microbiome dysbiosis, urinary microbiome issues, lack of vitamin D, like lack of appropriate phosphorus, that's when things come together, the body starts to work better, and then they can absorb the calcium. You don't just say no calcium, they need all of that for their system to work. Okay, so the meat has pretty much been all the way cooked through. Now it's just a case of mixing what we have, and also for you to remember at meal times, put some additional water into the food, and to use bone broth outside of meal times to increase that urine supersaturation. So what you're going to do is portion this out either into little plastic containers. Make sure the food is cool before it goes into the plastic, because we don't want microplastics getting into this. It will last 5 days in the fridge. Once defrosted, again, it will last 5 days. So that is a really well-balanced diet, high in protein, high in moisture, contains compounds shown to support urinary tract health. That, along with your yogurt just before, 1 teaspoon per 10 kilograms or per 20 pounds. Maybe a bit of water on top of this, and the bone broth in the day is going to provide maximum support to your dog.